right, welcome back to Salty Saints. My name is Hayden Holm, and today I am joined by a fantastic panel of guests. We have with us none other than Kurt Frankham from Leading Saints. We have with us also Sam St. Laurent. He is a guest on a lot of channels these days. He hangs out a lot with LDS Scooby, who is always a good time, and he pops on here all the time as well. And today I have gathered these gentlemen here because a few weeks ago, maybe even a month ago now, the church came out with a change to the schedule. And when most members saw it, I think they were probably more shocked than Taylor Frankie Paul seeing that the domestic abuse charges were dropped on her. And so members were scratching their chin.
Yikes.
They were looking at this thing and they were going, what? That's an interesting choice. And as I've sat and thought about this for a while, I actually think that this is going to be a really, really good change. And we're going to dive into why I think that today. We're going to be talking about some tips on how to run a powerful 25-minute Elders Quorum and build brotherhood. But we also have an announcement to make with Dads Need Friends. This next week, April 24th and 25th, we have the Memento Mori men's retreat. That's going to be in St. George, Utah. We're going to have a cold plunge. There's going to be hiking. There's going to be a sauna. There's going to be video games, board games, pickleball. We're going to have some therapists down there to give us some stress management tactics. All of that and more. Check that out at dadsneedfriends.com, dadsneedfriends.com. It's going to be a good time. All right, and so we also want to dig into an announcement that Sam just sprung on me about 3 minutes ago. Sam, the floor is yours. Tell us what is going on.
Yeah, it sounds as if my Elders Quorum is listening to some podcast of some sort. Although, albeit with Revelation, these things can happen. But I just got an email as of today from one of the counselors in our Elders Quorum presidency that said that they will be providing snacks. And they would like, it's called Snacks and Hot Takes was the subject line. So it's pretty nice little subject line. But essentially, it goes along the lines of they'll provide snacks. They want to have more of a discussion-based Elders Quorum meeting and less about, like sticking to the conference talk. I've always been
Are you telling me that they don't want to read a conference talk verbatim anymore? Are they like Twisted Sister, like we're not gonna take it? Is that what you're telling me?
I think our Elders Quorum always at least from what I've heard, they've always done a good job of like having more of a discussion than sticking to the conference talk. I've always been a big fan, and he actually mentions it in here. He mentions like if you have any questions concerning the gospel, how we can strengthen our quorum, better ourselves as priesthood holders, and then he mentions like or even like a topic from the conference talk, which I think is more along the lines of like what the brethren actually wanted us to do is like take an idea and then like talk about it and discuss and like
that's
like,
related. Distilled from the conference talk.
Not like a rehashing of the talk completely. So
totally.
Well, they better do it while they can, because come September we won't even have time to sit down.
So I think actually that's why that might have actually been why this email came out. I think they're trying to like start something to transition into like the new method of.
And I tell you what, the more that I've thought about it, the more I've realized that this discussion-based format, getting into more of a snack and chat, getting away from reading conference talks verbatim, I think that's going to become a necessity as we get into a shorter format in class. So let's, first things first, pull up the actual announcement here and see what the church said so that we know that everything's kosher, all right? Okay, so first things first, this was in March 2026, First Presidency announced changes to the Sunday class meeting schedule. These updates are meant, now this is the important part, focus on this. These updates are meant to support individuals and families as they learn, worship, and serve. So it's focused on the families. This is helping them to learn, worship, serve, both at home and at church. Together, these changes create simple and meaningful ways to grow closer to Jesus Christ and feel more connected to each other. All right, so it talks about some of the changes down here. One thing I'd like to just point out, this is a little side tangent. I don't mean to be a Relief Society president on you, but here we go. I'm going to take a scenic route. The sacrament meeting can last up to 60 minutes. Look at that. So
I
keyword
love that.
up to. Hey.
But I mean, if
maybe
it goes
we
to
stress test
65
that.
minutes, I mean, that's okay, right? If it goes to 65.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this from the perspective of having to like find sacrament speakers and line up talks and stuff like that. Maybe this means that we have shorter sacrament meetings. Maybe we get away from the 3-speaker setup, 3-speaker and a musical number setup. Maybe this looks more like a 2-speaker setup. So anyway, I saw that. I got pretty excited about that. Sunday school, 25 minutes. The core theme, the common thread through a lot of this is we're going to have to be pretty disciplined. We're going to have to get pretty on the ball about how we're managing our time. So Sunday school, 25 minutes, begins after a 5-minute transition from sacrament meeting. And then Elders Quorum will be 25 minutes, begins after a 5-minute transition from Sunday school. And it will study messages from the most recent General Conference talk while discussing how to apply messages in everyday life. A lot of people looked at that and they said, I got comments like, it looks like they're telling us that we got to read the conference talks. I was like, no. And I will show you.
Apply the messages in everyday life. I love that they have that in there. Like the application of an idea is like definitely something we should be talking about.
Yes. So they get into the nitty gritty, just like Nacho Libre down here. Okay. Keys to success. Let us not forget the keys to success. This will unlock success for us. All right. Keep the transitions brief. All right. Maybe we start calling some men to be hall monitors. Maybe we get some guys out there that are just like, hey, get into your class, just like herding cattle. And then while kindness and love should be shown at all times, the majority of social conversations can happen before and after church rather than during transition times.
Yeah, all 3 of them that are there before church, right?
That's right.
I love how they didn't just say like they didn't equate it with ministering. Like while ministering should be done at all times, the majority of ministering can happen before and after church.
Look at that.
Rather than during transition times.
Yes.
Okay, before you continue, am I just recalling this incorrectly? Did the church used to have like a bell system or something?
Yes.
In the building?
They did, yeah. When I was a kid, when we had 3-hour church. Back in the day of hand carts, back in the day, like we had a bell,
our buildings
and it was
are
somebody's
wired.
calling to ring
Our buildings are wired for it.
Well, some of them are wired.
We're good to go.
Many of them, some buildings, the bell system has been removed. So that's too bad.
Yeah.
Probably not out here on the East Coast, though.
What a lot of people missed behind these keys to success. Now, the keys to success were basically like, hey, get better, default aggressive, discipline equals freedom, just like Jocko, like, hey, let's keep her moving. Right down here, common questions, okay? Why is this change happening? Okay? It's intended to help members focus more on the teachings of Jesus Christ, strengthen gospel learning at home, and increase fellowship, belonging, and community at church. So not a whole lot of people caught that. But do you see that last part in there? Increase fellowship, belonging, and community at church, which I thought that was incredibly interesting. And so to me, when I hear that, it leans away from read the general conference talks one chair apart from each other in rows. That leans more towards let's start having conversations. And before we get into the secret formula for the high power meeting, there is another piece that I wanted to bring up right here. What is the format for Melchizedek, priesthood, and Relief Society meetings? Right here. Meetings begin and end with prayer. Gospel instruction is centered on messages from the most recent general conference. Centered. Okay. Discussions. Did you hear? Okay. Presidencies seek the guidance of the Spirit as they select messages to discuss. So that means good revelation is based off of good information. You're still going to have to be asking your quorum what their needs are. You need to figure that out. So send out an anonymous survey, figure out what's on people's hearts and minds, and then use that information, pray about what you can talk about, distill that, and focus those general conference talks on what the needs of the members are. Members counsel together during the lesson about how the principles in the messages apply to their respective challenges and opportunities. They are encouraged to both understand the teachings and apply them in their daily lives. Wow. Look at that. Okay. So they are supposed to counsel together during the lesson about how they apply to their challenges. So to me, that means that members of the class are needing to speak about their challenges. So that means it's not just a teacher. So it shouldn't be Sunday School 2.0. So if we have 2 Sunday School classes, we have failed. All right. If we have an instructor, we have failed. If members of the class are speaking together, that's us succeeding right there. They are encouraged to both understand the teachings and apply them in their daily lives. Leaders and teachers ensure that discussion focuses on the Savior and helping members deepen their covenant relationship with Him. Totally love that. And that is basically, so we have that as our foundation. That's where the church wants us to go right now. Okay. So now let's get into how do we do all of this with 25 minutes? So that's why I brought Kurt out here. Kurt, what are your suggestions? You are you're basically the top tier Elders Corps president out there. So let's do it.
As all my elders roll their eyes at that statement, but yeah, I mean, going through that, it makes sense on paper, don't it? Yeah, just do the things and share the challenges.
Just get it real quick.
Do it right. And I don't know about you, but I was a little bit more hyper aware of just how time was passing this past Sunday, since this is the first time back at church since the announcement. And I stood in Elders Quorum with 6 minutes past the time the sacrament meeting should have ended, and I looked at a brother, and there were only 2 other brothers in the room, and I'm like, at this point, we'd be running 1 minute late. It's just sort of this, like, wow,
right?
People are not anxious to get to class per se.
They're still taking the 10 minutes.
Yeah, Sam, were you aware, more hyper aware this week? Or?
Yeah. I actually let the young men know that, like, when they were at the 25 minutes or the 30 minutes, because you have 5 and then 25. So I let them know. And then after, I was like, hey, it's well, for me it would be it was like 10:30 or something, because I think our ward starts at 9. It's like, hey, it's 10:30. And then afterwards, I told them, like, hey, so like that would have been your block for Sunday school or for Aaronic priesthood. So.
Yeah. So, we are going to have to start cracking the whip on a lot of people. Like, we're going to have to get real focused, real quick. We're going to have to lock in. One thing that I really love about this is when it comes to Sunday school for the youth and the adults, I feel like we've been doing Come Follow Me for a really long time. And basically, ever since they launched Come Follow Me, they've had this, like, every other week we will talk about Come Follow Me format. And so there's something I've noticed working with young men is I'll ask them, like, hey, who's read the Come Follow Me with their family this week? And literally every time I have asked them that question, the response I get is nobody. Like, all the kids all the young men in the class is just like, no, I don't know what that is. What's Come Follow Me? What is that? And so I look at that and I'm like, I think this is going to be a way where that frequency is going to help families stay on the ball. We're going to have a frequent touch point. The youth are going to have a slightly different curriculum, but I think it'll help the adults get a lot more intentional about Come Follow Me, making sure that's happening at home, but also having a frequent touch point for the men and the women, I feel, is going to help them to better make friends and actual connections in the ward. Kurt, you look like you want to say something.
Well, I know it just seems kind of odd to me. I feel like the church is trying to influence what's going on in the home by what's going on at church as sort of this passive aggressive, like, well, maybe if we talk about it every week, then they'll study more. And I just think, man, I don't I don't feel, I mean, I'm just human nature here. I mean, I just don't feel like individuals are going to feel more pressure just because they still have to stare at the carpet when they, every Sunday when they ask, well, did you read the lesson or whatever? Right? I just, I mean, it's
but
good
now they won't have to stare
intentions
at the carpet as long as they used to, right?
Right.
Well, that's the other thing that I love about this is like, this is coming in for the clock watchers. And that's something I've noticed is that for me, I've noticed that usually around the last 30-ish, 25-ish, 20, 15 minutes of class, I'm usually just drifting to the clock. Doesn't matter. It's like Sunday school, elders. I haven't been in elders quorum in a long time. I've been with the young men, but even young men, it's just like, okay, how much time we got left? I think this will definitely help, especially those days where the young men didn't prepare a lesson, and you show up and you're like, all right, what'd you guys do? It's your lesson. Did you prepare anything? And they're like, yeah, they invite everyone to read scriptures, And
so it's
in those moments.
It's in those moments where you think, we really did this for 3 hours? Wow. Like, I can remember that, but I can't remember that,
So this one's for the clock watchers. Okay. So the clock watchers are getting saved by this new schedule. And I think that's great because it's going to help focus everyone. The other thing that I love, this is going to, hold on, I made it, the mere exposure effect. Have you heard that?
The mere exposure effect?
There's a mere exposure effect. So it's this, scientists have discovered that if you have frequent, shorter interactions with people, it actually is more important and builds friendship and social connection more effectively than a longer duration, but less frequently. So just if we are meeting every single week for 30 minutes, that will be better at building social connections than meeting for an hour twice a month, which I saw that and I was like, dang, so that could be super cool. So to me, this seems like a move in the right direction. When they say this is going to help build fellowship and community, I'm actually seeing some science behind that. And I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool.
So I'm trying to break that down a little bit in my brain. So individuals obviously will have shorter interaction with people, and people will feel like they have friendships even though they're not spending more time with these people, or maybe they're more likely to spend time with them if they have these sort of spurts of interaction in a church setting or more formal setting.
Segueing so hard right now. This is fantastic. Okay, this gets into look at that. This is getting into the intentional elders quorum meeting versus the unintentional elders quorum meeting. So I think for the most part, if you have an unintentional hour-long meeting where men are checked out, nothing's going to be happening there. But let's dig into how to run an intentional, high-impact 25-minute elders quorum meeting. And I think I'll start off with my Granny Annie recipe card here. Okay, I've got all the ingredients, and I think if you put them together in the right order, it's gonna lead to some very tasty, spiritually tasty results out here. Okay, so here we go. First things first on my list, I would recommend definitely the snack and chat. So the small circles and snacks. As a key element of the elders quorum, because that way you've got groups having separate discussions. I know Kurt does small groups in his ward, and I love what a small group does, because a small group, not only does it mean that men are going to be coming together and connecting closer one with another and getting to know each other on a more personal level, it also means that these guys are not going to have to worry about one or two people hogging the entire lesson, right. or talking about irrelevant stuff or side tracks or tangents or anything like that. So that means that more men are more likely to interact, which I love. So I would say small circles, tables, if you think you could handle that. Maybe we take out the tables because the setup on that might just be too much for the schedule.
I've never really been a fan of the tables. I've never understood it. Why do I need a table to snack? And it's just like one more thing to set up, one more thing to take down. I don't know.
Oof, look at that. That's why we have you on Salty Saints right there. Look at
salty.
Look at he's getting salty. Yeah, so
I can't help it.
small circles. We have these small groups and snacks. I think that's going to be key. That's number one on my list here. The second on my list. Okay, and this was from the church FAQ. Meeting begin and end with prayer. So for me, I love, this is something else that Kurt does, the circle of trust. And this is on the recipe card there, circle of trust. So you end it with everyone in that group standing up, maybe going shoulder to shoulder, maybe not, but they're talking to each other and asking each other, what can I pray about for you? Like, what are you going through? Can I pray for you about something? And then everyone shares something. And if they don't want to share, they don't have to share. And then they pray for each other in these small groups. Now, Kurt, what's your format for doing that? Do you have them stand? Do you have them go all F3 where they're locking arms and stuff like that?
We got to do burpees first, and then we'll. No.
Yeah.
You're just asking about the ending prayer, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I've tried a few things where we've done the group, where we split up into groups and sort of had the small discussions, and then at the end we come back together. But what I found was that was a little disruptive, and maybe if there was a flow going on in one group or whatever. And so I've recently been trying it, and not that I'm settled on which one's the best, but I've been recently trying that each group is having their own opening prayer and their own closing prayer. So those groups are starting the minute that they walk in, right? So it's all part of the agenda and I can get into this, where I literally give facilitators a script, right, that they can go through and follow, and like, oh, this is the part where
let's get into that. Yeah.
You want to jump into the script? So
yeah, let's dive in.
So one thing I noticed as I was experimenting with different things is that I was in one group where I asked a good man to facilitate it, and he ran out of content. He said, we got 15 minutes left, and he kind of looked at me like, well, I think I did what you asked me to do, right? And I'm like, oh, like I'm the type of person that I can, I can do all sorts of songs and dances and distract over here and take up time. Like, oh, I got 30 minutes left and I prepared 15. Well, I can get there. But I realize that's maybe not a skill that everybody has. And so I thought, I think these facilitators of these groups actually need more guidance as they're going through this. And so I put together a simple script that I got. I was inspired elsewhere. It probably doesn't matter for this discussion. So the minute that facilitator walks in, I hand them the facilitator script for the day. And it goes through as far as what to talk about at the beginning, when to do the general conference discussion, when to end, and all that. But I can go into detail, but that's
cool.
the general.
So is that basically
here.
Like an agenda then? So do you have is it like hey, here are some of the things that you need to talk about today? And who is,
for sure.
Are you as the president preparing this, or is that somebody else that's preparing that? Sorry,
well, I just have.
That's a lot of questions.
Slow down, Professor. I just have, it's just a template that I'm just swapping out minor things through it. So the first part of that, and it is meant to be a script where they read it, right? And obviously they pause and then discussion happens and they go back to the script, read it. So in the beginning, I just have a sort of a warm up, break the ice. And obviously we're talking in the context of 45, 50-minute lessons, right? So, So in the beginning, I have some sort of superficial questions as far as like, what do you, like this past Elders Quorum, what are some projects that you're working on now that spring and summer's upon us, right? Like what are some projects that you're working on? Are you excited about them? And so guys start to talk, right? And so, and then as they talk and, guys are coming in, some are arriving late or whatever, and they're sort of joining that more superficial discussion. And then we go into the prayer. We ask somebody to pray for, to say the opening prayer, right? And so then they pray, and then we get into, and I'll just, oh boy, where'd it go here? And I'll just read this. So it says, so we pray, and then it says, this is a group that fosters connection and authenticity, enabling us to better fulfill our duties and learn doctrines. Share as much or as little as you feel comfortable. However, we invite you to lean into sharing what is most authentic and real. So,
wow.
And then we celebrate the victories, big or small, that help us grow as men in life, work, and faith. This is a space to recognize and encourage one another's progress. What wins or moments of growth have you recently experienced? So this is an important concept because it's one thing men have a really tough time sharing their struggles. They have an even more tough time celebrating their successes and celebrating the things they're happy about. So I want to build into this a moment where guys can just say, "Hey, I got a promotion at work," or whatever it is, like, and so and we've already warmed up the group with the discussion, so they're used to talking to one another. We've prayed, and now we're talking about the wins, right?
That's really cool. So you set the ground rules. If I understand this correctly, every discussion group goes through the rules of this discussion. Like, this is what the point of this discussion is. This is what it is not. And we are hoping that you guys can share with us. That's incredibly, incredibly powerful. As I've been researching and diving into the world of Elders Quorum and connection and how to build social connections and brotherhood, one of the most important elements is something called emotional reactivity, or it was something, emotional responsiveness, which basically means that if you're going to build friendship with someone, you have to be vulnerable with them and you have to be emotionally responsive to that person. And that can't happen. That can only happen outside of the shallows. So typically the shallows are, well, oh, how was your weekend? Great. Oh, awesome. Mine was too. Great. Hey, it was good seeing you, Bert. We'll catch you later, and then you just go ways, But that having vulnerability is a marker of developing friendship with someone, because you're trusting, you're developing trust with that person when you do that. So I love that. So an agenda, and then you're giving them the rules of the discussion. And you have how many of these groups typically on an average Sunday?
4 to 5, and each one has 5 or 6 guys in it. I'd like to get that closer to 4 to 5, no more than 5, but it's even, some have been 7 or 8, but you just depending on how many facilitators and things like that. So I'm still trying to dial that in.
Cool.
And so, and one thing I'll mention if people really want to geek out on this, there's a fantastic book called The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker. And she talks about this concept of whenever you're gathering a group of people, you have to set boundaries as far as what is inside the gathering and what is outside, right? So, or like you said, the rules of this. In this context, we talk authentically. You can say whatever you're comfortable with, but just know that we lean into authenticity here, right? And so we're stimulating a culture of that meeting. And so after we talk about the wins, then we do a check-in and connection. So we encourage brotherhood through connection. We can serve each other better if we know where you're at personally. Feel free to be as detailed as you're comfortable with when you share. The question is, in at least one word or phrase, how are you showing up here today, right? And we get answers sort of all over the map. Guys who you can tell they're not maybe ready to be super authentic, and they'll say, I'm good. Like, okay, brother, glad you're here. And then we get guys who are like, I'll tell you what, guys, like getting my family here to church today, like that was something else. Like, anybody with me, right? Like, we barely made it, right? And so guys really lean into that. And then we say, if you'd like others to reach out or need further support, join our private group me. And then ask, is there anyone in this group that has not joined the group me? And then we have a QR code on the that they can just scan, and they're in the group.
You're getting people into your group chat every single Sunday. Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
look at that.
As long as they're new or whatever, right? So So, and then it's also a great way to get to know others and serve others in the quorum. We encourage you to attend our Elders Quorum gatherings as we have them, and we'll announce that all in the group me. And then it says in the script, now start the general conference discussion. Now consider that, just how warmed up they are to actually have a dynamic discussion about a conference talk. They're more likely to be vulnerable, more likely to talk, and this is the beauty of it, is that, again, going back to, and I can talk how ways to adjust this for a 25-minute schedule. But the reality is, yeah, you only have 25 minutes, but you can make that 25 minutes more like 60 minutes or 90 minutes because you have multiple people talking at one time in different groups. So you're expanding time because there's more opportunity. So essentially, I would guess a typical Elders Quorum meeting has about a 10% engagement level as far as like people raising their hand and speaking at one time, right? Where in this model, it's more like 90 to 95, even close to 100, because I can look around at all the different groups and somebody's always talking. And a lot of them I can identify, oh, if we were in a big group setting, he'd be in the back of the room. He'd have his arms crossed or be scrolling his phone or whatever, right?
Right.
And so you're expanding time by creating this opportunity for multiple groups to talk. So and then we just end. Yeah, go ahead.
The conference talks, are they all different? Does each group have a different topic that they're talking about, or are they all given the same script? Is it like the same topic but just different groups?
So people can maybe give me a yellow card here in a minute, but this is how under my keys that I've been set apart with, this is how I do it. We send a message out to the facilitator and say, can you prepare a 10 to 15 minute discussion about a conference talk with a small group of 6 to 7 men, right? And they can pick any general conference talk. You want to go back to 1973? Do it, man. Because what I want is I want the men to feel like, oh man, that Elder Holland talk 6 years ago, that thing changed my life. I remember being in the pit of despair, and I heard it. That's going to set a different tone of me. Like, all right, now what did Elder Cook talk about? Like, I guess I better review it and figure that out and determine, right? And so now, more often than not, they're taking a conference talk from the most recent conference. But every group is on a different talk. Now, one point of feedback we got from a few saying, hey, I kind of like reading the talk and coming in somewhat prepared. And so we've done our best to, when a facilitator says, yeah, I'll do it this Sunday, we just say, hey, let us know what conference talk you're going to do. And then we blast that out in the group me. Hey, here's the different general conference talks. And so some may say, yeah, but then they're not as prepared. But to me, the overall approach and model is by far more effective, even if people feel like, I didn't know what conference talk they were going to talk about.
Right. Wow. Okay, I am going to have to give a yellow card on that. That goes against the handbook. So, hey, look at that egg on your face.
Yeah. We're getting close.
Oh, man. But that's great. That sounds amazing. So you're having a bunch of different discussions, but the key part of that is that men are actually talking about the discussions that are engaging to them. Like these facilitators are finding a conference talk that actually spoke to them and changed them in some way, and they're able to communicate that passion to the other men that come to their group that day, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So what else does the script say?
So at that point, then it's the wrap up and circle of trust. So, basically the notes under the general conference discussion, it says, have someone set an alarm for 1:55 because our church ends at 2, which we would begin wrap up. If you end before 1:55, consider returning to any of the questions above. And then, so at 1:55 with 5 minutes left, it says, we hope you found this format helpful. If you have any concerns about your experience today or about Elders Quorum in general, please reach out to the Elders Quorum presidency, as they are always open to feedback. We would like to end our circle of trust with a prayer. Are there any prayer requests for you individually or for someone you know? Again, the more authentic and real you can be, the more effective we can pray for you. What is spoken in the circle will not leave the room. And then we end with a heartfelt prayer. The end.
Look at that. Wow. I love that. So there's a lot of rules. There's a flexible, dynamic format that allows for authenticity. It allows for vulnerability. It allows for great discussions and brotherhood to be formed. Yeah. That's fantastic. So how are you going to change this to fit the 25-minute format?
So I saw someone in the chat mention, they said, hey, Kurt, I don't think the group model is going to work in the 25-minute class schedule. And I completely disagree. In fact, it is more important, in my opinion, to do it this way, because what happens is that those who get there right on time, who are more punctual and maybe get there, 3 minutes after sacrament meeting, the minute I have 4 or 5 guys, hey, here's the script, get started, go, and they're already started. They're not waiting around like, oh man, like, come on guys, we're gonna lose time here, right? So they're already going, and then the next group starts, and the next group starts, and then you have the handful of stragglers.
So you
that
just fill them up.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get 5 guys, it's like, all right, this group's full.
Right.
Get going, and then
we don't need to gather as a quorum beforehand, or we can, because if there's any announcements, we put it in the group me chat. If there's things that other business, we can just go there. So
I love that idea. Yeah, get all the announcements there. Everyone panics on Sunday about announcements. That gets people's blood pressure up more than anything. It's like, oh, we gotta announce everything, so they start running around all the So
and the
just
setup,
having that all in group me is fantastic.
Yeah, and the setup takes no time at all. They grab a chair, walk to the corner, and they go. Or I have one classroom across the hall from the gym that we use, and then the kitchen as well. So they're just grabbing a chair, moving to where their group is, and they're going. So that's the setup.
Yeah. So
and we don't
what
do
I have
traits,
heard from all of the script that you just told me, I heard members counsel together during the lesson about how principles in the messages apply to their respective challenges and opportunities. They are encouraged to both understand teachings and apply them in their daily lives. Wow, look at that. You are completely aligned with what the church is hoping for us to do. And so so I love that. And now for the 25-minute piece, are you thinking maybe of just leaning more into asynchronous communication, just leaning more into like group me, or...
Yeah, so, and maybe I'll throw this out there. What I think online, there's been different opinions as far as how to execute this 25-minute approach, right? And do any come to mind as far as what people have said of how to do this?
Yeah, so a couple of people have told me that their plan is just like, well, I guess we're just going to have to get the PowerPoint slides set up that much quicker, so someone's going to have to leave Sunday school halfway through so they can set up the PowerPoint slides so that as soon as the men start Elders Quorum, they can start looking through slides about the talk. And I have beef with PowerPoint slides, but
that being said, so PowerPoint isn't bad if you want to use it to structure your meeting. So if you just have a slide that says like like if you are going to do announcements, like announcements, opening prayer, announcements, like to keep it structured, right? But like if you're making a PowerPoint every week that's dedication though.
That's a little too much.
That's dedication.
Not for this guy.
That's magnifying that's trying to magnify their calling though.
Well, and that does give me an idea of, I wonder, and again, it's one more thing to set up, but
you can put a prompt. You can put a prompt on the screen. Yeah.
Even if I just had a screen in the corner that was saying, at this point, you should be on the the conference talk by now.
And the PowerPoint, you can actually you can actually do a countdown too.
Yeah. So that's interesting.
Look at that. So I have heard something like that. I've heard other people that said like, hey, we're just going to have to, the whole snack and chat piece, we're just going to have to cut that out and just go straight into general conference. So the whole like counseling together is just, we're done with that.
So, and I think this is really important to understand, like from a psychological level as humans, because I know that individuals are going to be like, all right, it's September 6th, like, let's do this, guys, we've been training for this, right? And go.
It's go time. Yeah.
And they'll run in there and it's like, 5 minutes after sacrament meeting, somebody's saying, all right, now what did Paul mean about yada yada yada, right? It's like, you can't just jump into it. Like, imagine if general conference was like 10 a.m. on conference Saturday, and you turn it on, and it's immediately a general authority stands up and was like, I remember as a boy in Pocatello, Idaho. Like, you can't just jump into your talk. You need the prayer. You need the hymn and those things. Again, not that you need a hymn in these settings, but there is this concept of a warm up. Like, you are going to have a very difficult time unless you warm people up to the experience that you're about to have. Now, if it's 25 minutes, that warm-up might only be 5 minutes. But even here, more like, let's just get in the scriptures as soon as we can. Well, you need people to psychologically buy into the experience before they're going to give back to it and engage in it, right? And this is where the small circle concept, where It's this beta and alpha dynamic where right now us three are in an alpha state because I could ask a question to Hayden real fast or to Sam and he's got to hear it and respond, or even though you're not
Right.
talking, you're still in this engaged
Hey, I
alpha
went to the
state,
gym this morning.
right?
Like hyper alpha. Yeah.
Where
Hey.
there's many listening to this that are in a beta state where they're just passively doing the dishes and listening to these three clowns talk about the 25-minute meeting, whatever, right? That's a beta state.
Right,
Now,
right.
learning and transformation will only happen on an alpha state, or more likely to happen. So the more you get people engaging in an alpha state, which is talking, contributing, sharing, then they're going to have a more impactful time. And so that's what another dynamic that the groups do. And that warm up, you have to warm up people. You can't just expect that people are going to walk in an alpha state, ready to go. I've got a comment. Let's do this, right? So you have to warm them up to that experience before they'll ever engage.
Right. So is that coming from that book? Remind me, it's about
The
gathering.
Art of Gathering by Priya
the
Parker.
art-
The Art
so
of Gathering, yeah.
is that so? That's part of the book. There is like the alpha and the beta.
I don't think that came from there, but I'm not sure where I learned that. But I did learn it somewhere. I'm not just making this stuff up, I swear.
That's awesome.
Hey, and if you are, hey, you heard it
There
here
you go.
first.
I'll own it. Yeah, I did my PhD on that, so which I don't have.
Cool. Okay. Well, so I love that, and instead of like alpha and beta, I think in my mind, that translates into like intentional versus unintentional, you know,
Yes.
or like proactive versus reactive, agent versus object, that old dynamic, you know, where you're just kind of going through the motions versus just being on it, you know, being ready to go get after it. I love that you're talking about that. There is one thing that I wanted to touch down on, and but before we get there, I want to make sure that we get the 25-minute format that you're hoping to pursue all ironed out. So is there anything else that we missed?
Yeah, I'd say the big print. Obviously, I'm going to strip down this script quite a bit, right? We're probably going to do a lot of. I think I'll still have some type of warm up question, like just get people talking. You know, we may not talk about wins. We'll maybe have a shorter check in type of thing, but we're hopefully getting to that conference talk sooner. However, the point being is the script I think is really powerful because it focuses that facilitator, the teacher, like, oh yeah, we have an agenda here to get through, rather than like, oh my goodness, look at the time. Like, I was just telling
so you're
you
not
that
just trying
story
to
about
pass the time. Yeah. Because I've been on I've been in lessons where you're just like, well, and that's kind of how you create the lesson. I've taught lessons where I'm like, maybe I can like maybe loop into this direction here, and maybe I could tell a funny story over here, you know, and fill in that much more time. And then, oh, look at that, we're at the hour. I did it, success. Like my success was just speaking until the hour was done. It wasn't like focused on a purpose, which is fantastic that you're doing that. I cut you off though. Keep going.
And then just, you know, and this is really difficult. They emphasize in that, in what you're reading, sort of the ground rules or whatever, that, you know, community, how does it put it? This stimulate community and connection or something. And I'm like,
right.
I don't know about
Fellowship
that.
and community. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it right here. They are encouraged. No. I'll find it, but it was fellowship and grow closer. Those are the keywords there.
Yeah, and that's
increased learning, fellowship, and grow closer.
That's tricky because I'm not sure exactly what they mean by that or how they expect that to happen in a shorter time. But hopefully at least we have that goal, right? That focus there. So
I love that. Okay. So the takeaway then is that you still have a script. You have small groups. You still have your script so that everything's intentional. You're laying ground rules. You're being vulnerable and emotionally reactive and responsive towards each other. You focus these general conference talks on the needs of the quorum. You're collecting those, and then you're coordinating with lesson facilitators, discussion facilitators. And then they're preparing that every week now just for really powerful discussions. So it sounds like you were advocating that we keep a bit of counseling to warm people up. Maybe just like instead of getting 10 minutes, maybe you're saying maybe like 1 to 5 minutes of counseling and then 15 minutes of doctrine discussion. Is that right?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily frame it as counseling because we're not getting into like deep, like where before the counseling focus had some substance to it. Like it was where to me, I call this the prime the pump principle, where you're just getting people talking about even something super superficial, but they're in the setting and they're talking, they're hearing their voice in the room. Like it just naturally triggers the mind to settle in, right? So even if it is a, what's your favorite, vacation as a child, or what vacations are you doing this summer? Well, we're going to Yellowstone. Oh, I've been to Yellowstone, right? And so it's this very there's not a lot of risk of engaging there. It doesn't take any authenticity. And so, but that increases the chances of them being more authentic later on, because at least they're past the barrier of, oh, I spoke up. Like I've bought into this experience here because I use my voice, right? Rather than the guy at the back of the room being like, I'm not talking. Like, no way. Like there's too many guys here, or that guy's talking too much, or, so.
Totally. And I've seen that. Like I've been in rows where the guys just do not, if they see that someone else will participate, there's this this bystander effect that will happen where people are like, hey, I don't have to worry about this anymore. Like these two guys, they're going to do it. Like these two high priests are going to do it because they want to run their own podcast one day, and these guys got to get their words out for the week before they go home, have tapioca and watch Gunsmoke at night,
Yeah.
And so I've definitely seen that. And so I love that you're getting there. You're saying still start off with like a bit of buy-in. So lesson buy-in, discussion buy-in. Yeah. And that might look like talking about like a win for the week or something like that, talking about something that's relevant to them. And that would just be included in the script. Now, because we're going to have to get really disciplined on the time, maybe it just includes a bit of a time on that. Maybe there's a time limit like, hey, you got this much time to talk about, the buy-in portion of the script this week.
Yeah. Yeah. And time gets away. And another point I'll make there is that you mentioned like we've all experienced the guy who's maybe making too many comments, or the gal who's making too many comments. And we're like, and there's so many ideas out there of these passive aggressive ways to sort of like maybe just turn your back a little bit so that you can't see them raise your hand or something, like that. That's not going to work, and it's
wild.
Just awkward.
Wild.
The reality is,
or tell them to put their hand down. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We've heard from you enough.
Put your hand down. Yeah.
But this is, at least when you're splitting up into groups, it's there's only 3 people that are sacrificed to it than 30 or whatever, right? And they can talk more, and naturally they'll let others talk more when they're in a smaller group. Rather than it's a strange psychological dynamic, but I promise you, it's more effective to temper that person who's really anxious to say a comment over and over and over.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. So there's still some counseling. Everything else is still the same, though. Is that the plan then? So everything else still stays the same. You still cover different conference talk points.
I would imagine
you end with a circle of trust.
Yep.
That's
in a
your
perfect
recipe.
week, we'll have 5 minutes of just sort of warming up the group, talking, asking questions. Then you're into the talk for 15 minutes or so, and then and again, and someone made the point here in the comment of like, don't you're not trying to cover the talk. Like find a paragraph that you can talk about for 15 minutes and go from there.
Yeah.
And then wrapping up with that 5 minutes of just connection and a circle of trust and praying for one another.
Love it. Okay. There we have it. The 25-minute powerhouse elders quorum meetings. So it's got vulnerability. It's got connection. It's got conference. It's got teaching. It's got heart. There's a lot of heart in there, but it's also got counseling about everyday needs. It's got application. It's got highs and it's got lows and prayers. So, man, I love that.
We solved the church's problems, so we're good.
To reiterate, the president or the presidency, or do you call somebody to prepare the scripts?
The script just doesn't need to change that dramatically. We're just swapping out questions. The format's the same. We're talking about wins. Yeah. We're talking about, circle of trust. So yeah, there's not a lot. I'm just,
Yes.
it literally takes less than 3 minutes to
So each
prepare the
discussion facilitator has a script sent out to them, and they
Well,
stick
I'd
to that
hand it to them
script.
as they walk in the room. Here it is.
Love
You know what to
that.
do. Yeah.
That way they can't leave it at home or fumble
right.
around or anything like that. It's like, here you go. Go for it. Okay. Awesome. Okay. So there we have it. We've got a powerful 25-minute Elders Quorum meeting. So hopefully we can dig into that as soon as September comes. But I want to make a point. There's something else that I want to talk about real quick before we wrap up. I ran some studies. Okay.
Uh-oh.
What does it take to build brotherhood? And there was a study out of the University of Kansas by Dr. Jeffrey Hall, and he identified the volume of time needed to transition through different levels of friendship. So you have casual, regular friends, and then good friends / best friends. And this is the brotherhood category, or brotherhood, okay? Do you want to take a wager on how much time it takes to go from acquaintance to casual friends? In hours.
In hours? And this may be
Yeah.
not at one time. It could be several interactions that build up to
Yes.
certain hours.
Like
Yes.
at what total point do they become friends? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I'd say 100 hours.
Okay.
But
Sam
this
said
is we're
100.
just talking about acquaintances, becoming an acquaintance.
Oh, just an acquaintance.
No. Going from acquaintance to casual friends.
Oh, okay.
I'd say 100 hours.
Sam's at 100. This is
I'd
Price
say,
is Right.
I'd say
it's
101.
hours. 5 hours.
5 hours. Okay. All right. To go from acquaintance to casual friends takes 94 hours.
Oh, I was close.
Look at that. Yeah.
But you're over. It's
That's
Price is Right,
casual
Sam.
friends.
yeah.
Yeah, look at that. No showcase showdown for Sam. Yeah.
Dang
Kurt
it.
gets to spin the wheel. So to go from casual to regular friends, that jump goes from 94 hours to 164 hours. To go from regular friends to best friends or brotherhood status, that requires 200. It requires 219 hours. All right, so let me. I
many
got my
problems
master's
with this,
degree in finance. Okay, and so I want to take this to the sheets. All right, so I'm opening up Google Sheets, and we're gonna get into the numbers. So let me share my screen real quick. Here we
And
go.
this guy opened up a spreadsheet during a live. That's when we knew we had him.
We got him now. Okay. Just when you thought this couldn't get any more entertaining, I'm whipping out the spreadsheets. Okay, here we go. So we've got over here, we have different things that are happening in your Elders Quorum, all right? So this is where I have a lot of fun over here. So all right. So this is
Are you
have
able to
your
zoom in a
friendship
little bit
levels.
on that? I can't. It's kind of small.
Oh man, look at
The
that.
old-
You are here to represent the boomers. All right.
That's right. Can I get
Hold
this
on.
in a PDF format?
I can't hear anything. Hold on. Can you get a microphone? I can't hear anything.
Now I don't got to put my
All right,
spectacles
right here.
on. Okay.
All right. So we have our different friendship levels over here. All right. Casual, regular, good friends. The amount of time it requires to become those different friendship levels. And then we have our meetings down here, the different things that you can do with your Elders Quorum. And one thing that I found is that if you are only doing intentional meetings, this is like 2 hours a month of intentional Elders Quorum meetings. If that's the only thing you're doing, it will take you 4 years for the men in your quorum to become casual friends.
No.
All
Okay.
right.
4 years of 2 hours a month. Okay. It'll take them 7 years to be regular friends and 9 years to actual brotherhood of good friends if you just do intentional Elders Quorum meetings. All right. So if you do Elders Quorum meetings and one activity a month that is 1 hour a month, then that reduces it to 3 years, 5 years, and 6 years. But if you incorporate a messaging app where the men in your quorum are actually messaging for about 30 minutes a month, where they're going back and forth, sending out announcements, responding to that, maybe throwing a couple memes in there, some Lord of the Rings memes and stuff like that, that shortens it down to 2 years for casual friends, 4 years for regular, and then 5 for good friends or brotherhood. And then what's this over here? What if you did 1 camp out per year? And I only included the hours of wake time. So that would be like 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. All right. So 8 hours on a camp out where you're actually talking with other people. And if you do 1 camp out and everything else, then that lowers it down to 1 year to casual friends, 1 year to regular friends, 2 years to brotherhood. And then the final piece here, ministering. Okay. If you actually do your ministering, this includes the time you're spending in your ministering interviews, then that means if we just go 3 hours a year in ministering, okay, I know that might seem ambitious, but 3 hours a year in ministering, then that means everything can happen in 1 year. You can have brotherhood in 1 year if you do everything in ministry. So what am I trying to make? What point am I trying to make here?
Yes.
Brotherhood is primarily built outside of Sunday, is what I'm trying to say. Like, I look at all of this and I'm like, brotherhood actually happens outside of our meetings. And especially now when our meeting is only going to be 30 minutes every single week, we're going to have to, I would say, lean more into more time spent outside of the class. So that is my recommendation there, if you want to form brotherhood in your quorum. But I wanted to get your thoughts on that. What do you think when you see some of these numbers?
Sam, you first.
Yeah, go for it, Sam.
I think there is diminishing returns after that year mark or 2 year mark. I think it's a lot like the YouTube like hours required to be monetized, where it like resets. Right. After a year, or your numbers start to go down because it's starting to take off hours as you go past the year mark or whatever. Right. I think it's a lot like that. Like once you get into like I like it, but once you get into like the 4 year mark, like you start to lose some of those hours that you've built with somebody, I think, over time.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Well, it goes back into how intentional you're being in your meetings. Like this assumes that you're being very intentional. Like so there's actually a
but
study.
It's just not a lot of time, but you're consistent with it, right? That's what it's essentially saying. Okay.
Yeah. And so like if you're being unintentional, if you're being checkbox, they've actually done studies on this. It actually either it flatlines your ability to grow, or it actually makes it worse. So in your relationship,
only get to 93 hours.
Yeah. Like it'll just stagnate. So if you get to 94 hours and then you just go full into checkbox meetings where you're not doing anything, you're just completely unintentional, it will stay there no matter how long you spend. If you spend decades there, nothing's going to happen. And I look at that and I'm like, I think that's why a lot of elders quorums have been struggling. Even though they have been spending a lot of time together, the idea that there hasn't been a whole lot of intentionality in how they've been running those meetings, where that's why we haven't been seeing as much brotherhood coming out of them. Okay. So, Kurt, what are your thoughts when you see this?
Okay. Listen, I have the greatest cheat code when it comes to this, because here's a few things, and I'll just state the cheat code. If you want to stimulate or accelerate connection among men, and this goes for, we're obviously talking in the context of men, but really for any human bond and connection, is experiential and transformational. Okay, so for example, on your spreadsheet, having group messaging, that 0.5 hours has a different value than 0.5 hours of elders quorum meeting or 0.5 hours of activities and service, right? So if men have, they talk about like women bond face-to-face, men bond shoulder-to-shoulder. Like, if you get your elders quorum engaged in a service activity, that will accelerate the pace of connection as opposed to just, so this, I would say the time's not equal, right? And,
right.
And so I think it's all about creating, how can you create an experiential experience or a transformational experience for the men to engage in. The thing about service is that there's an experience there that has substance, right? Or to use a dramatic example, there's all these, they make movies about these like catastrophes, or whether it's 9/11, or if we're we're new in a quorum and we're getting a ride to a service activity and we witness ahead of us a rollover crash, and we pull over and we're pulling people out, we're yelling at each other, help me over here, someone call 911, right? Whatever it is, like by the time we go through that transformational experience, we would be more deeply bonded. Now, obviously, hopefully that tragedy doesn't happen, but you can still stimulate it by having transformational experiences or service experiences or things with more substance, not necessarily more intention. But there's my thought.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So, no, and it goes back to, and when I say activities in there, I think we have to do away with the idea of an Elders Quorum presidency getting together and saying, well, what do the men want to do? Let's figure that out.
So
I
true.
think it comes back to more of forming interest groups, recurring interest groups in your chat, your group me or your quorum's Discord, or maybe their text threads, whatever you're using, maybe WhatsApp, where your core members are sending invites to do things with each other that they're already doing. So if it's like, I'm going to go on a hike, anyone want to come with me? Then you get like 4 or 5 other guys that go with you. They spend probably more than 1 hour doing that, then that's going to accelerate the amount of brotherhood you can build, and so I would say absolutely, that's what I mean by activities. We have to do away with the idea of the presidency coming together and saying, all right, how can we create this activity? Because men will not attend an Elders Quorum activity. I was over activities for about like 8 years in the Elders Quorum. Like I multiple Elders Quorums, and we only saw like 2 or 3 guys mostly at these activities. And as I've thought about it, the reason is, there's a lot of reasons, but some of the primary reasons are they don't have support from the spouse. They feel guilty leaving their wife. And at the end of the day, a lot of the activities are not aligned with their interests. And so they see that as an uphill battle. They're like, no, I'm not gonna give up my time for that. I got to stay home. I can earn brownie points at home, which can lead me to do things that I actually want to do, or I can cash in those brownie points to do something that I don't want to do with people that I don't really know. That's going to be a tough one. So, but they will cash in those brownie points if it's actually a hobby of theirs. If they're really into board games, they will cash in brownie points to play board games, because that's actually going to relieve stress. That's going to make it worth it for them, So that's what I would say there. There's been a lot in this episode, but I have loved learning more about how you run your quorum, because I think there's a lot that other Elders Quorum presidents could take away from that, and that we can hopefully get some more brethren to wake up, get some more quorums waking up, and figuring this out, so that we can actually build brotherhood and get better fathers, get more fathers active, get stronger youth, happier families. And it's just like a chain reaction of really cool things that happen when dad's active. So I love that. Before we leave, though, any final thoughts, Kurt?
I will mention, if people want, I'll put a template together of the script I use and make it available. You can put it in the show notes or whatever, and if people, they can download it and adjust it however they want, but that'll maybe give them a good starting point. So
I love that. Okay, well, let's we'll probably, I know we're getting close to the hour, so we're going to wrap up here. Sam, any final thoughts from you?
I liked all the suggestions that were brought up, like especially since I'm going to be going to a new ward. So like, fingers crossed I get to stay in Elders Quorum. So
love it. Yes. So all right, we are getting close to time. So Kurt, where can people find you and learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can, or however you're listening to this, you can search Leading Saints and look for the red logo. And then we got a lot of good stuff happening over at Zion Lab, which you can find at leadingsaints.org/Zion. So,
love that. And then Sam, you are a familiar face on Salty Saints and LDS Scooby. Anywhere else?
No, that's about it for right now.
There we go. All right. And until next time, my name is Hayden Holm, and this is Salty Saint.